Since the global economic recession or crisis started around 2007 or 2008, even several European Union countries have struggled to hold their economies together. Most notably, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Greece. Tens of billions of euros have been plowed, especially into the Greek economy to keep it afloat and prevent the country from going essentially bankrupt. At least Greece and Italy out of those countries have public debts exceeding by a clear margin their gross domestic products. Among the wealthier European Union countries, at least one, that is Belgium, has also belonged to that to that pitiful club. I'm not sure how well Ireland has managed its finances, but it seems to have got through the worst of the crisis. And outside the European Union, but still in Europe, Iceland, in Northern Europe, in the North Atlantic, suffered its major bank's virtual collapse in 2008, which led to the government's resignation and to a new left-green government being installed in 2009. The Prime Minister of Iceland at the time of that banking collapse in the fall of 2008, Mr. Geir Horte, received only one minor, or was sentenced to a suspended sentence for only one minor offense, not having scheduled more meetings or not having provided more oversight for the country's economy. But he did not have to go to prison for that offense. Okay, this article comes from the Fair Observer, which is either a digital newspaper or magazine or a news website. The opinions expressed are those of the authors unless I insert my own. And as always, no copyright infringement is intended by even this current affairs video by me. The article was published on May the 20th, 2019 and written by Mr. Isidoros Karderinis, probably a Greek or Greek-born journalist. Italy must return to the lira, its traditional currency, because joining the euro has been disastrous and sticking with it would be suicidal. He is a novelist, poet, and columnist. His articles have been published in newspapers, magazines, and websites worldwide. Italy joined the Eurozone in 1999 under the leadership of Prime Minister Massimo D'Alema of the Democratic Left Party. This fateful participation, which entailed the complete loss of independent monetary policy, is undoubtedly the main cause of the disappointing performance of the Italian economy. Italy's GDP currently stands at 1.94 trillion US dollars, and its growth rate is extremely anemic. In January 2019, the country's central bank estimated that the economy would grow by just 0.6% this year. Between 1969 and 1998, Italy's real GDP per capita increased by 104%. Since joining the euro, the devaluation option, that is artificially lowering the value of the currency compared to many foreign currencies to improve its export industries and goods competitivity, has been off the table. Italy's monetary policy is set by the European Central Bank, and that is true for every other country in the so-called Eurozone. From 1999 to 2016, Italy's real GDP per capita, that is adjusted for inflation, fell by 0.75%. During the same period, Germany's real GDP, and Germany is one of the most solid countries economically and financially in the Eurozone, and should Germany withdraw its support for the euro, the currency would probably collapse. Grew by 26.1%. While Italians have lost out, Germans have gained since the euro was launched. Even as the Italian economy has shrunk, its debt has grown. It now has the third largest state debt in the world after the United States and Japan. Interestingly, Japan's gross public debt is over 200% of its gross domestic product, according to Wikipedia. The United States is fast approaching that because it adds about $1 trillion every year to its public debt, because its deficit at the federal level is roughly of that size. The debt mountain of 2.7 trillion and compared to Japan, where most of the debt, according to observers, is owed by the Japanese government to Japanese citizens, many holders of the US public debt are foreign countries, foreign companies, and foreign individuals. The debt mountain of 2.7 trillion at 132% of GDP is far too high. Since 1999, the Italian economy has gone steeply downhill in all aspects. Fiat, which is famous for producing many passenger cars, has ceased to dominate the European car market, and the country has lost its leading position as a producer of white household appliances. Labor market problems, low public and private investment in research and development, a large and inefficient bureaucracy, a dysfunctional, costly, and slow-moving justice system, and high levels of corruption and tax evasion are among some of Italy's intractable problems. Unemployment is at about 11%, the fourth largest in the European Union after Greece, Spain, and Cyprus. At the same time, unemployment among young people aged between 15 and 24 amounts to an alarming 30.8%. Poverty has risen to its highest level since 2005. The latest figures reveal 5 million people living in absolute poverty as of 2017. The figure includes 6.9% of Italian households. As a result, a deep economic and social crisis is sweeping through this Mediterranean country like a hurricane. The Italian economy is the third largest in Eurozone. In this badly designed monetary union, it is like a tired horse loaded with bad debts that is finding it difficult to breathe as it marches uphill on the stones and puddles of an incredibly rigid Eurozone system. The Eurozone today is nothing else but a combination of conflicting interests among member states. What is of great interest to Italy is not of interest to Germany. What is of value to France does not matter to Greece. And the reconciliation of interests in the era of the common currency, and I would say in an era of increasingly strident rhetoric between the so-called globalists on the one hand and the so-called nationalists or national conservatives and protectionists on the other hand. And the political debate, like the debate in many other areas of society, seems to be becoming at least gradually more polarized, more tending towards extremes. And it is so difficult to find moderate middle ground on many questions. This is because Germany, the dominant economic power of the Eurozone, has managed to rule and dominate. It is using the euro for its benefit, while other countries, instead of resisting or objecting, are bowing and obeying. The time has come for Italy to leave the Eurozone. So far, Italian politicians have feared short-term negative effects of such an exit. Yet the cost of delaying Italy's exit from the Eurozone will ultimately prove to be far greater than the cost of rupture, because of an imminent and impending economic crisis. The first decision by the coalition government of the Five-Star Movement and the Lega to submit a 2019 budget with a deficit of 2.4%, defying Brussels, was clearly in the right direction. Italian policymakers need to reinforce the economy by strengthening domestic demand and safeguarding the prosperity of the people. In a crisis, they cannot follow Brussels' strict financial regulations that have been authored by Germany. There is another reason to leave the euro. Italy needs energy in the form of cheap oil and gas. By leaving the euro, it could get oil from Libya and gas from Gazprom, which I think is a Russian or Russian-dominated petroleum-producing company. This would lower its production costs. Combine that with a flexible national currency and the Italian economy would become extremely competitive. To sum up, Italy is sailing into the turbulent Eurozone sea where powerful winds will sink it. However, if its political leadership decides to change course and return to its traditional coin, Italy could still save itself. And Italy, of course, is notorious for a cronyist and individual group-oriented political system. Electoral and other reforms have been tried, but so far they haven't addressed the issue, and probably the ultimate problem is with the sinful human nature, not just in Italy, but also elsewhere. Stay tuned.